Real estate mogul, a regular guest on The Record. Here are some of his best moments.
People are tired of being pushed around and being represented by incompetent politicians. You look at these politicians, the way they're representing us, it's a disgrace. Whether it's the Iran deal where you have to wait 24 days before you can take a look at what they're doing. And by the way, the 24 days doesn't start for a long time. You look at all of the things that are happening in this country, China ripping us off, Japan ripping us off, Mexico taking advantage because their leaders are so much smarter than our leaders. And I think people are tired of it. They're tired of politicians, they're tired of incompetence, and they're tired of all talk, no action. And the people of New Hampshire, the people of Iowa, these are amazing people, because I'm doing great in Iowa too. And they're amazing people, they're great people. They want to see our country be great again, and no politician's going to be able to do that. I know what I know. I'm a great jobs producer. Everyone says I'll be the best leader in every poll. I'll be by far the best leader, and by far, economically, I'll be the best.
What's your weakness?
Well, some people think I'm not a nice person, and I actually am. I love people. I think you know I'm a nice person, but some people think maybe it's the You're Fired and the Apprentice, who knows? But some people think I'm not a nice person. But you know what I told somebody that said that really wants me to win? They said, but Mr. Trump, can you be nicer? I said, look, I don't think this election is going to be won by a nice person. I think people want competence for a change. We need really, really smart, competent people. And if we don't get that kind of leader and leadership, and in particular at the level of the president, this country is in big trouble.
If I get the nomination, I'll win the Hispanic vote, because I'm going to bring jobs back to America. I'm going to take them back from China. I'm going to take them back from all these other countries that are taking our jobs because our leaders don't know what they're doing. And the Hispanics will vote for Donald Trump. I'm against illegal immigration because I speak up for the country. I'm against illegal if you look at it, well, it's very simple. Illegal immigration. I'm totally opposed to it. You see what happened in San Francisco with that beautiful young woman who was shot standing with her father by a man that shouldn't have been here. We threw him out 5 times. Mexico sends him back in. In my opinion, the Mexican government forced him back in. They forced many criminals back into our country, and that's what I've been talking about. And frankly, people have given me great credit for talking about it. I brought a subject to light.
Are you considering at all, since you're getting heat from every single direction, is there any chance you'll get out of the race with this?
No, I love it. I'm bringing to fore and getting a lot of credit for it. Lots of different elements that are very important. We have incompetent leadership. We have leaders that don't know anything about negotiating. We're getting killed by China. We're getting killed by Mexico. We're getting killed by Japan and killed by Saudi Arabia. Makes $1 billion a day, Greta, and if they have a problem, we go and defend Saudi Arabia. We get nothing. We are a bunch of very, very foolishly led people. So what I think I'm doing very well. I will tell you, I'm getting a lot of credit. On the other hand, you know, the way you asked that negative question, I'm getting a lot of credit, on the other hand, from people that say I'm the only one that's speaking the truth. And I think that's why I'm so high in the polls.
We don't have a good relationship with Mexico, right? Do we have a good relationship? Remember Sergeant Tamarisi, right? They kept him in jail. We couldn't get him in. We had a president didn't even want to make a phone call. He was in that jail, rotting in that jail. And I helped him with Greta and some people, and I helped him financially. And finally, he got out, but he was in there so long. She was terrific. By the way, without her, you probably wouldn't even, he'd still be there.
And the Donald, well, he's not the only business leader running for office.
The only way to reimagine our government is to reimagine who is leading it.
Meet Carly Fiorina, former Fortune 100 CEO, former candidate for U.S. Senate, and now running to be your next president.
I'm Carly Fiorina, and I'm running for president.
But how did Carly rise to the top? She started as a law school dropout. Her father said she'd never make it, but he was totally wrong. At first, she went job to job, starting as a receptionist, then teaching English abroad, then signing on as a sales rep for AT&T. And at AT&T, Fiorina shined, running entire departments by age 35 and meeting her future husband, who told her she'd be running the company someday. Well, he was almost right. In 1999, while running Lucent Technologies, an AT&T spinoff, she got a call from Hewlett-Packard. They wanted her to be CEO, the first woman to run a Fortune 50 company.
In the digital age, if you can dream it, you can do it.
At HP, Fiorina streamlined operations and oversaw a controversial merger with computer giant Compaq, at the time the biggest high-tech merger in history.
We believe we have received sufficient votes to approve HP's merger with Compaq Computer Corporation.
But the move widely criticized, and in 2005, she was fired by HP's board.
I have never hidden the fact that I was fired from Hewlett-Packard in a boardroom brawl. I've never been ashamed of that, because I know that when you lead, when you challenge the status quo, you sometimes make enemies.
But it wasn't the end for Carly. Soon after, Carly surviving a bout with cancer and then running for a seat in the U.S. Senate against Senator Barbara Boxer.
After chemotherapy, Barbara Boxer just isn't really that scary anymore.
That effort ultimately coming up short. But being a political outsider set the stage for her presidential campaign today.
Ours was intended to be a citizen government. So citizens, let's take it back.
And former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carly Fiorina going on the record. Carly, nice to see you.
Great to be with you, Greta. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Carly, so what do you think is the reason that the outsiders in this whole political contest in the GOP, which includes you, Donald Trump, and Dr. Ben Carson, why are the three of you doing so well? None of the three of you is a politician.
Because 75% of the American people now think the federal government is corrupt. Because 82% of the American people now think we have a professional political class that's more concerned with the preservation of its own power, position, and privilege than on getting the people's work done. Because people are angry and frustrated with festering problems that never seem to get resolved. Whatever your issue, whatever your cause, whatever problem you hoped would be resolved by now, the political class has failed you.
Do you see this as sort of almost like the Tea Party movement 4 years ago? Because, you know, the Tea Party movement was a lot of people who were sick and tired of Washington, people who had not been particularly involved in politics. And although it didn't get a lot of steam and eventually sort of faded out, it was the people who were unhappy with the political class. Is this a little bit of the same group and more?
I think it's some of the same group and more, because if you think about those numbers, 75%, 82%, that means it's Republicans, independents, Democrats. It means it's young and old, men and women, people of all ethnicities. It means it's the vast majority of the American people. I have a lot of Republicans show up at my events, of course, but I have Democrats and independents as well. You see, it's not partisan to say we actually need to secure our border. It's not partisan to say we finally need to reform our Veterans Administration. It's not partisan to say government truly has become so crushing, so inept that they don't do anything well.
But all those things that you name require legislation, unless you do it by executive order, but require legislation, which require relationships, something that President Obama has been criticized for not having, or having no interest with either Republicans or Democrats on Capitol Hill. The three outsiders don't have that legislative experience. So how do you convince the voters that you can do it?
Well, first, relationships can be built. They need to be invested in. And I certainly would invest in those relationships. But honestly speaking, Greta, I think it's less legislative experience and more understanding what to do. What actually do you have to do to get a bureaucracy to move and to cut it down to size? And I also think this will involve channeling, harnessing, leveraging the anger and the frustration of the American people. That's why I will use technology to engage in a regular conversation with the citizens of this nation. You know, take out your smartphone, please. Fellow citizen, do you think we ought to know where your money is being spent? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no. Anger and frustration are important, but a leader, a good leader, can channel that anger and frustration to force the political process to move, because politicians will and do respond to pressure.
And of course, do not forget Dr. Ben Carson. What an incredible story.
I'm Ben Carson, and I'm a candidate for President of the United States.
He's one of the best neurosurgeons in the world, and he might even be your next president.
We are one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carson's story starts in a broken home in the inner city Detroit. His mother worked 2 or 3 jobs at a time just to make ends meet. And when Carson started doing poorly in school, she had a solution.
Turning off the TV and making us read books and submit to her written book reports, which she couldn't read. But, you know, it didn't matter because it worked.
He rose up, attending Yale and medical school at the University of Michigan, eventually revolutionizing his field, becoming the director of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital at just 33 years old, completing numerous surgeries once thought impossible, including separating conjoined twins, something that he says set him apart from the other presidential candidates.
I'm the only one to separate Siamese twins. The only one to operate on babies while they were still in the mother's womb. The only one to take out half of a brain, although you would think if you go to Washington that someone had beat me to it.
And of course, Dr. Carson jumping into the political spotlight at the National Prayer Breakfast in 2013.
And our national debt, $16.5 trillion. You think that's not a lot of money?
And today, he's one of the political outsiders who wants to be president.
We are going to change the government into something that looks more like a well-run business than a behemoth of inefficiency.
And neurosurgeon Dr. Carson surging in the polls. Here are some of his best moments on the campaign trail.
This country was envisioned by individuals who wanted everything to be surrounding the people, of, for, and by the people. Not of, for, and by the government. And the government was to respond to the will of the people, not the people to the will of the government. We've allowed the whole thing to be turned upside down.
We need to have people who actually understand what's going on so that they're not so vulnerable to slick politicians and dishonest media and people who try to manipulate them. It's very hard to manipulate somebody who's equipped with a lot of information.
Think about the people who came before us. Nathan Hale started as a teenager, became a spy. When he was caught by the British and ready to be executed, he said, "My only regret is that I have but one life to give for my country." Think about that. Think about all the soldiers who gave their lives, many cases knowing that they would never see their loved ones or their homeland again. And they did it for you and for me. And now it's going to be up to us to decide, what are we going to do with that freedom? All the pundits say it's impossible, and they say you can't put together an organization and you can't raise money because you're not connected with all the big money, so it's impossible, so you really shouldn't even be thinking about it. However, I just said, Lord, if you want me to do it, you open the doors. And if you open the doors, I will walk through them. And, you know, we've been able to put together a magnificent national organization. I found it amusing a few months ago. The Washington Post says, Carson's organization has fallen apart. All of his people are quitting. This is what they want to happen. It has nothing to do with reality. You know, I just find it amusing. And they said, you'll never be able to raise money. But they forgot about one very important thing. The people. They forgot about the people.
On the Record reached out to Dr. Carson's campaign for an interview, but he was not available due to scheduling.